night. Welcome to Patrick's Dark Corner.
Hey, what's up everyone? So today's case is one that used to give me nightmares as a kid. The reason this case is so scary is because both the victim and the killer are children. It brings on a wider discussion of punishment of children and stuff like that. So it's interesting, but let's get going. In 1998, Maddie Clifton, or Maddie as she liked to be called, was an 8-year-old girl. She had a mother named Sheila, a dad named Steve, and a sister named Jessica, who was just 2 years older than Maddie. So Maddie's parents called her the perfect child. She was well-mannered.
A little girl, and she could be a tomboy. She could wear a ballerina outfit just as well as her soccer or her basketball stuff.
Maddie lived in a neighborhood called Lakewood, which is a working-class area of Jacksonville, Florida. The story takes place on November 1st of 1998. On that day, Maddie went out to play, but she never returned home.
Maddie, please come home. Mom and Daddy and Jesse are ready for you to come on home.
So a search for Maddie began.
Media was off the chain on this. Maddie Clifton became the face of Jacksonville. People were showing up by the hundreds to help look for this little girl.
We're looking for Maddie.
The FBI came in and local sex offenders were questioned. A reward for $50,000 was posted, and it was later raised to $100,000. Little did anyone know that Maddie was across the street from her house the entire time. So across the street, diagonally or kitty corner, lived Maddie's 14-year-old playmate, Josh Phillips, and his parents, Melissa and Steve. 7 days after Maddie went missing, Josh's mom went to clean his room while he was at school. The room smelled really bad, and although Josh had put air fresheners, incense, and candles, it still smelled really bad. So his mother went in to clean. She noticed that his waterbed was leaking, and she thought, okay, maybe there's mold and that's causing the smell. So she went to shift his waterbed, and when she did,
Phillips discovered the 8-year-old's body under her son's waterbed. She would never be just any mom again. In an internet blog written several years ago, she recalls praying to die on the spot.
As a mother, you felt tremendous guilt yourself over all this.
Yes, I did. And I sometimes still do. I try not to. So many of my friends keep saying it's not your fault.
she panicked and ran out to find a police officer. It was pretty easy to find one because they were all over the area looking for Maddie at that time.
We found Maddie Clifton this morning at about 7:30 a.m. She was dead.
It started at 7:28 when Misty Phillips, who lives in a house diagonal to the Cliftons, contacted an officer in the neighborhood on surveillance duty. At 7:30, he went into the Phillips home and the bedroom of Misty Phillips' 14-year-old boy, and there he made a gruesome discovery.
He saw Maddie's feet hanging out of the bed. It's a waterbed, and apparently it had been in some state of disrepair, and it was taped up. She was taped up in the bed, and it's apparent that she had began to decompose it.
Now here's what we know now several hours later as the news conference continues with Sheriff Nat Glover. A preliminary autopsy by the medical examiner indicates that the young lady was stabbed 9 times in the body, 2 times in her neck. Maddie also suffered trauma to the head.
Cops went to Josh's school to arrest him.
Here to announce the arrest of Joshua Earl Patrick Phillips, white male, 14, of 6139 Fleetwood Road. Joshua lived at that address with his parents, his father, Steve Phillips, and his mother, Melissa Phillips. He has been charged with murder, and he has confessed to the crime of killing Maddie Clifton.
Josh told cops on the day Maddie went missing, she knocked on his door to ask him to play baseball. Apparently, she had been going around ringing the doorbell of some of her other friends, asking if they could play. but none of her friends were available except for Josh. Neighbors actually witnessed Maddie and Josh playing baseball together outside. The problem was that Josh was not allowed to have friends over when his parents were not home. Josh says that he and Maddie were playing baseball when he accidentally hit her in the eye. She started to bleed and she started to screaming and crying. Knowing that his father would be home any moment, Josh started to panic because he wasn't allowed to have friends over, and what would his father do? When forensics on Maddie came back, it was determined that Josh's story wasn't totally true. Maddie was actually strangled with a telephone cord. Josh hit her and then stabbed her. He then went out to greet his dad as if nothing was wrong, and when he came back in, he noticed moaning coming from under his bed and that Maddie was still alive, so he stabbed her 9 more times to silence her. Maddie was found nude from the waist down. The test determined that she wasn't sexually assaulted. Josh said that her pants fell off while he was dragging her to his bedroom. Computer records would also show that Josh had watched violent adult content 30 minutes before the murder, as well as several times after the murder. I mean, he was a 14-year-old boy, but still kind of creepy. Cops also determined that Josh had a big crush on Maddie's older sister, Jessica. They also found that he had books on devil worship and Satanism, kind of implying that Maddie was sacrificed. In July of 1999, Josh was charged with first-degree murder. His lawyers tried to say that Josh's father was an alcoholic and an addict with a violent temper towards Josh and his mom. So that explains why Josh panicked about his dad coming home. None of it mattered to the judge.
A young killer hears his fate.
I'm certain that on Judgment Day, you, Joshua Earl Patrick Phillips, will be given a far harsher sentence than I can impose. Until that day, it is the sentence of this court that you be delivered by the sheriff of Polk County into the custody of the Department of Corrections of the state of Florida to be confined in prison without the benefit of parole for the rest of your natural life.
He was spared the death penalty because in Florida you have to be 16 years old to be sentenced to death. In 2000, Josh's father actually died in a car accident, and Maddie's mom attended his memorial service. Maddie's whole family was actually very sympathetic and gracious towards Josh's family. They made it clear that they didn't blame them for Josh's actions. Starting in 2004, Josh's mother started campaigning for a new trial for Josh because she thought that his age really wasn't put into any kind of consideration in the first trial.
It's possible he just doesn't know why.
It could be. I don't know. I'm at a loss because I wish I knew, and so many times when I was trying to force it out of him in a way, you know, I just kept nagging him all the time, you know, and I always would say, Josh, it's not ever going to change how I feel about you. I'm always going to love you. I am always going to be here for you. You can't tell me anything that is going to change the way I feel. But he just can't go there.
Has he ever expressed remorse about any of this?
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's I think that's part of why he can't talk about it. He wishes with me that we could undo the unchangeable.
In 2008, the original prosecutor on Josh's trial, as well as the detective Nate Glover, who worked on the case, both said that they thought that Josh deserved some jail time, but they both said that they had second thoughts about a life without parole sentence for a 14-year-old. In 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that
a major ruling this week, the Supreme Court underscored a previous decision that said sentencing children to prison for life without chance of parole is unconstitutional. Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote for the 6-3 majority, not only is it unconstitutional to do in the future, but it was unconstitutional to do in the past. Therefore, the Supreme Court declared the ban on life without parole sentences given to people who committed crimes as juveniles must be applied retroactively. An estimated 2,500 inmates now stand a chance at sitting before a parole board, arguing for their chance to re-enter society.
So in 2017, a resentencing hearing for Josh Phillips was held. His lawyers talked about his age at the time a lot. They also said that Josh was the model prisoner behind bars, and that he had even earned a paralegal certificate and was using that to help other inmates. And he planned to be a monk when he got out. Maddie's mother testified too, asking that Josh's life sentence be upheld.
These past few days, I've sat here in this courtroom and I have listened to all of the classes that the defendant has been able to take. What classes has Maddie been able to take over the past 18 years?
Josh himself actually took the stand, and for the first time he actually apologized to Maddie's family.
This is for the family of Maddie Clifton. I've wanted to say this for a very long time, and I'm grateful that this chance to do so in person has arrived. I don't pretend to know or understand your pain or to grasp the void that I've created in your lives. I can say this: I do understand pain. I have become quite intimate with suffering. Growing up in prison, I have seen many dark things, and I've been to some dark places. Many times throughout this journey, I came dreadfully close to ending my life just to escape it all. During these times, I was embroiled in a flurry of emotions and feelings: guilt, despair, pain, hopelessness, fear, and shame. Each time, I was somehow able to continue on, mostly because I couldn't stand to put my mother through any more trauma. She's been through enough. There were times that I was angry at her because I couldn't end my pain because of her love. Yet now, I'm eternally grateful to her. I'm grateful to her because as I've grown up, I have learned the value of life. I've learned to see the beauty and joy in a world full of strife and experience the truth of unconditional love. I wish to God that I could have known this or understood it when I was 14. Had I then, none of this would have come about. I had no clue what life meant, what death meant, nor the depths of suffering that could follow one act. I had no inkling of how long that suffering could last. I hadn't lived long enough to understand the time involved or what really suffering was. I did something horrible. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what happened. Even now, after all these years, it is just unfathomable that all this could have occurred. It tears my mind asunder to know that I stole such a precious life from you, from the world. I so wish I could take away your pain. I thank God that I've been able to continue on in life and grow, but not a day goes by that I don't think of what led me to where I'm at. Not in prison, but in life. I pray every day that you're able to live your lives in spite of the injury I've caused you. I'm supremely grateful to have an opportunity at physical freedom. Yet any joy that arises in my heart is immediately tempered by the knowledge that these proceedings bring all involved once again face to face with the horror that occurred in 1998. When I walked the rec yard here in chains, I looked to the sky through mesh wiring, and I thank God repeatedly for giving me hope. My next breath is always devoted to wishing peace and healing upon you all. My hopes, fears, and wishes probably mean nothing to you, but they are there all the same. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. And may you feel the love that is the sustenance of life itself. May God bless you and heal your wounds as much as possible.
In the end, Josh was resentenced to life in prison. However, he will be allowed to appeal his sentence in the future.
To look at them and tell them why you're doing what you're doing.
Before handing down the decision, Judge Waddell Wallace took time to explain his 30-page document detailing what led him to his conclusion, calling the case unique from other child murder cases.
This was such an outrage. This so affected the community.
When Phillips was called to the stand, Wallace made it official, imposing that life sentence again.
Hi, Mr. Phillips, it's a sad day for me. I have had to go through this process, and I'm just trying to do my duty the best I could.
But the Cliftons breathe a sigh of relief.
At first, it didn't sound like it was going to go very well at all.
Maddie's mom, standing next to her other daughter, Jessie, spoke out for the first time in years.
I feel so good about this. I really do. He can't hurt anybody else ever again. Never. No one should ever have to go through this twice.
The Phillips family asked for privacy Friday, but Josh's older brother Daniel spoke with us before the hearing.
I have to be there for him now.
He says his brother is a changed man.
It devastates him every day, and he has suffered in there.
He says while his family is in pain, they also feel for the Cliftons and highly respect them.
I can't imagine what they're thinking, so I try not to sometimes. And I respect Jessie and admire her a lot. She's a very kind soul.
I appreciate everything he said to me, and I commend him, very much for what he said about me, and I think he's a wonderful person too, and my heart goes out to him and his family.
Her mom echoes that sentiment.
I do feel sorry for his mother. I really do. And I love her because she is a special human being, and it is not her fault.
Before leaving the courthouse, she held up pictures of her daughter, happy, she says, justice was finally served.
She was something else. And I miss her so.
So I really want to know what you guys think of Josh's sentence, and what do you think about children being sentenced to life in prison? Do you think that's fair or something else should be in place? Personally, I think it depends on the case, and I'm not a psychologist, so I don't think I'm qualified to make that kind of decision. But for this case personally, the fact that he slept over her dead body for 7 days is what really disturbed me the most. I can't really imagine anyone doing that, regardless of age, unless they're a psychopath. So that's my opinion, but I really want to know yours in the comments. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.
In the darkness, where secrets hide, there's a corner where the truth resides. Gather round, all you seekers of the night. Welcome to Patrick's Dark Corner, where things come to light. Patrick's Dark Corner.